Have you ever launched a business and scaled it to 40 million with 100 employees in under a year? I haven't either. And I feel like I was just taken to church, humbled, my heart full with wisdom, actionable items by our incredible guest. I just had my new friend Devin on the show, who's the CEO and founder of Sales AI. And I basically have pages of notes in front of me. We started by talking about AI because he has an incredible AI company, the buckets of AI, how to use it, the principles to follow. Then we got into his story as an entrepreneur who at now 28 years old is running this company, had another company that had 200 employees doing 20 million a year that he sold and was acquired last year. He is an incredible man of faith, of values, of people, believes in relationships over everything. And he just took us to church. The three models that he uses to operate his day every day, how he takes his vision, even as a solopreneur, all the way up to the company he runs now, and gets everybody to execute it for him, how he communicates, how it's based on team, how it's based on communication, speed of iteration. And I'm like looking at my notes and I have so much to share. He talks about problem solving and how you can stay ahead of your competition by attacking problems weekly and how to go about that. How if you build a business for money, it will never last. And that's something that we've echoed and sentimented over and over and over again. How your job is to look at the past for a point of reference, not declaration. There's personal development mixed in, there's mindset, there's strategy, there's tangible takeaways and tactics, the 5 key pillars of a vision, and so much more that I'm having a hard time articulating it. And so Devin was an absolute honor to have on the show. I just learned so much, and he's walking wisdom, walking experience based on values, based on business. And he shared all of it with us in today's show. And so without further ado, let's get into the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. I'm stoked. This is the first interview of 2025, new year, fresh perspective. And I'm stoked because I've been getting to know our guest today. And truthfully, I was Instagram stalking him like a stage 9 clinger this morning. But I'm incredibly honored to have Devin Johnson on the show. So he's the founder of Get Sales AI. He has founded multiple tech companies, sold them, has quite a history when it comes to being an entrepreneur, was entrepreneur of the year in 2022, has made it on the Inc. list. Most importantly, he's a husband. He's a man of faith. From what I can tell, does things the right way and sees things the right way just based on his energy and the fact that we have matching beards, which makes me happy as well. And so I'm really stoked to dive in today and to kind of start getting into learning. Number one, we were talking about AI before the show and some myths around it is something that he's super passionate about. And then even his story of entrepreneurship, because I think there's a lot that we can all glean and leverage because he's got nothing but perspective to get to where he is now. So Devin, welcome to the show, my friend.
I appreciate it, man. Happy to hang out, talk a little bit about AI, talk a little bit about journey, all the good stuff.
Yeah. So just for everybody and even myself included. So one of your companies or your current company is Sales AI. Can you just give me an overview of like what Sales AI is? Because I'm assuming AI is involved.
Sure. Sales AI, we do one thing, and that's we create AI agents for two focuses. So we do lead qualification for businesses that run paid ads or have high inbound traffic. Instead of a human qualifying leads, AI qualifies leads that empowers your team to focus on only qualified leads to actually close
Mm.
business. And then we do tier one customer support. So call in basic questions that, users may be frustrated or don't know how to return something or so on and so forth. AI can actually take those phone calls. And we give a lot of mid-markets businesses the option to turn on 24/7 customer support. So it's actually an AI agent helping deliver that value to the customer base.
Okay. So I feel like my brain is breaking already because I never even realized that AI could do tier one customer support. Like, does it
Oh
talk
yeah,
to them on the phone?
yeah. So we do three mediums. We do call, text, and email. That's currently how we service users. Primary focus is voice. So the ability to call inbound, outbound, to do follow up, to do reminders, to do reception work. It can do kind of all the above. Anything an entry level person within the company would be picking up the phone to do, our platform can execute.
Wow. Okay. So now I'm really excited to dive into this and learn because I learned that. I mean, I remember using ManyChat, 7 years ago before AI existed and we were doing like customer service stuff for like front end qualification, but I never even realized it got to voice. And so one of the things that you were saying before we started, and I actually am really excited about your perspective, because like when it comes to AI, I'm like a toe tap kindergartner where like I can get dangerous in my own little world, but I feel so unqualified and uneducated because it changes so rapidly and it's so big. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that you were talking about is like all the myths and the
Yeah.
misconceptions about AI. Can you break those down for us?
The biggest myth that we overcome all the time running the company is that AI is your end all be all solution. And that's
Mm,
just not true. AI is extremely powerful and it is getting better every single day, but it requires a smart human behind the screen to still program it and to still put it in the business use case. Our platform has made it extremely easy, but I am talking about AI in general. There's a lot of very powerful platforms. However, it still requires a very intelligent human to get the most out of AI. If
yeah.
you if you ask AI dumb questions, it will give you dumb responses. So um, it people think it's just like this easy switch, and it is in some ways, but it still requires the human touch behind it. And
Yeah.
another really big myth behind AI is that it's kind of on the other side of the fence, but a lot of people believe AI is not there for business use cases. But what you do not realize is AI is not new. It's been around since the late 80s. It's just not been accessible to the human, like the average human being or average business owner until, 2021, October of
Mm.
2021, when ChatGPT released their interface. And so people think that artificial intelligence is brand new. In reality, it's powered the largest companies in the world for decades. And so the business use cases for AI are 100% valid in there, and you just got to have that intelligent human. Back to my last comment, you got to have that intelligent human to lean in and to learn something new and be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Those are probably the two biggest myths behind the AI world right now.
Yeah, I see that for sure. And it's like, ChatGPT came out and the gatekeeper was removed, and
That's
it
right.
allowed these things. I mean, because companies have been paying for years. Like we hear about them, we see them. Even when I was in the military, I was in the Marine Corps for 13 years. We
Mm-hmm.
would have access to things like that for massive data and things like that, but nobody had the access. And so in saying that, which I genuinely love, because I play around a lot with it, and I've definitely spit in some stupidity and gotten some like stupidity back. And I
Yeah,
feel like there's this entire corner of the internet where you can see, you're like, oh, you just took one response, dropped it out there, right? But one of the things that you said that I think is so powerful is like, you got to get comfortable like exploring and learning something new. But with AI, the
it's
more
just
you learn, and
faster.
yeah, just faster. And the more you learn on the back, like the better you get behind the scenes, the better results you get in front of the scenes.
Right.
And so what are some of the things like when it comes to that, like when we talk about the intelligent human, right? Because I feel like personally I've had this fear in me, because like I never had the like, oh, I got to learn something new, but I'm definitely like, if you're not aware of AI or have an understanding or even like have somebody around you who knows, like there's this fear in me you're going to get left behind,
Sure.
because it just feels so big.
Not necessarily to reinforce the fear, because I actually think it's a huge opportunity, right? But what you said is true. If you are not going to lean in 2025, 2026, 2027 into even the basic functions of artificial intelligence, which I got kind of three buckets of
Oh, I'd
utilizing
love to learn
AI.
those. Yeah.
But if you're not even paying attention, it's going to be equivalent to like back in I mean, I'm young, I'm 27, so I didn't live during these times. I lived through, research on this, but people used to say that the internet wasn't going to make a difference in business. Okay, we are shooting this podcast on the internet. Obviously, it made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Then the next revolution in technology that people said really wasn't going to make a huge difference was the CRM world, right? Well, now every business to scale and sustain, you need to have a strong CRM. Then you've got your cloud infrastructure, everything going to the cloud. People said, well, if cloud is just a thing. well, now every major business runs on the cloud. So this is that next, decade of craziness that we're just stepping into, right? You got to think the internet, the CRM world, the cloud infrastructure world, that was the foundation to unlock the most powerful technology component that we knew that we've had for, 25 years, 30 years, whatever it's been, to finally put it into real world business.
Mm. I love that perspective, man. Yeah, I even think about like the iPhone, right? When he started with the iPod, he's like, I'm going to put songs in your pockets. And we're like, you guys are gnarly. And I was there for the internet. Like
Yeah.
I'm 41. So I was there and I'm like, I remember when everybody got email addresses for the first time, they're like, I'm never using these. Like we're sending letters and faxes. And now we're at the other side, but everyone's like, get me out of my email. I don't want to be in it anymore. And
Yep.
so I love that perspective. I would actually love to know because you alluded to this, and I'm curious, like, what are those three buckets that you place AI in?
Yeah. So I would call bucket number one kind of your one-on-one class, your basics. So let's think of, I like to think of what is your biggest weakness. Let's say, like for me, early in business, finance was a big weakness. I didn't understand cash flows, P&Ls. I was just I'm much sharper on that 10 years into it. But you know, I struggled with it to begin with. And if ChatGPT were to be around at that time, I could have just plugged everything into ChatGPT and it would tell me what I'm looking at. So think of a weakness, pick a language model, ChatGPT, Claude, Llama, I don't care, just whatever interface you like. If you suck at something, you don't understand it, put it in there and ask the question. That's like one-on-one using AI to be smarter, to make better decisions. And, I would just encourage people to start there, right? And back to my comment about the next 3 years, really paying attention. Just start with something that you hate to do in business because that's a motivator. It's like, I hate doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Throw that puppy into ChatGPT and ask an intelligent question with it. You'll be impressed what spits out, right?
Yeah, I want your other buckets, but I want to add something to this too because this is like spot on, and one my partner said this as well, but like especially for us as like entrepreneurs, like when you're dealing content creators, influencers, coaching contracts, consulting contracts, like contracts was like one of the big one where I'm like, read this for me. Like tell me what
Yep.
I'm missing. And it like will highlight like it's your agent, like, hey, you might wanna, or it's missing
Yeah.
this, or
I, that was my next suggestion is legal contracts. Like we all hate reading them. I upload every legal contract into ChatGPT and I just say, what are the pros and cons? I am this party in the agreement, enter. And it'll give me all the pros in it, all the cons in it, and then suggestions to make it better.
mm-hmm.
And I at the size of business that I'm in now, I have a legal team. So what
Yeah.
I do is I take those comments with the agreement, I send it off, and then professionals behind me, you know, take the suggestions or do what they do with it. But at least I know what I'm reading.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been huge too. I mean, half the time I get emails from people that are legally, I'm like, I can't even understand this email. I'm like,
Yep.
can you break this down into like layman's terms for me? So I love that. And one other note too, and this is something it's probably hilarious, but I did a podcast on this because
Mm-hmm.
I use Claude and GPT, and then I think Llama is one of the ones I have that aggregates them all together so I can like play with them, or something like that on my phone. But I've put so many inputs into it throughout the years, like about this podcast and about coaching and events that I run and consulting companies, like just to like brainstorm back and forth. And at the end of the year, I was like, hey, based on everything I've ever given you, can you tell me my weak points and what I need to work on? And
Yeah.
I will tell you right now, I like lost the breath in my lungs because it was like somebody went into my head and my heart and like found every iniquity or shadow that I was aware of and working on, but like spit it back to me so clearly. And I was like, all right. And then I was like, well, how could I attack these? And it like
Mm-hmm.
item by item by item with like clear lists and all of it. And, for everybody listening, I think to your point, Devin, which I love is it's better to be framed as an opportunity than a fear, but
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those ones when early on, like just having an awareness of it. But I found the fastest way, and I'll ask you this before the other buckets. the fastest way I learned, because I had it too, because I have some tech friends that are really, really smart, right? And I'm like, guys, I was a Marine, like I can figure stuff out, but I prefer like people. And I was really hesitant, but I found just playing with it a ton,
Hmm.
like just asking it random questions, things I used to Google or things that I was pondering on. And then I would ask it to teach me how to use
Yeah.
it better. And it was really, really good. And so, like, do you have any like tips or ideas or strategies for people that like, whatever bucket, because we'll unpack the other two buckets in a minute, but like how to just build a relationship with it?
Yeah. I would strongly recommend doing something that either takes you a lot of time or you struggle with, and then continue to ask it genuine questions. But you can wrap up every prompt with, in the future, how can I be better at doing this task? And
Mm.
it'll give you the feedback loop, right? Based
Hmm.
on the questions you were asking. Um, and then, I know some people, I personally don't do this, but I know some people that will wrap up the prompts and then they'll take the notes that it gives it and they keep like this little digital diary of like things to work on in the future. Um, and it's like the way I describe using something like ChatGPT is like, think about a $20 a month business therapist.
Yep.
It's like anything you just are frustrated with or you're stuck on, go talk with
Yep.
it.
Yeah. And
And
yeah, go ahead.
that's just the easiest way to think about it. Like think about like a therapist that knows everything about business and life. Really, I mean, it knows everything outside of business too. Um, and just start having conversations with it.
Yeah, I love that. And the one note I want to make before you unpack the other levels, because you said this earlier, even with the legal side, would you're like, I take that in the summary and I send it off. I want to speak to everybody too of like, to your earlier point of like the quality that you put in dictates the quality that you get out. I like to look at the results as like an 80 percenter of like, okay,
Oh
there's
yeah.
some lipstick that needs to go on this, some makeup, or like big idea to add humanity to it. Would you agree that
Hmm.
that's kind of like best practice?
You've got to have a touch of human in all of it. The world is waking up to only ChatGPT answers and understanding that you put zero effort into it. That's a downfall of AI. Is just like you get tired of seeing flashy entrepreneur bros on Instagram. People get tired of hearing ChatGPT responses.
Yeah. Yeah. This is why
So
we're aligned. I'm like, it's the whole premise of the show and like my entire existence as a human being. I'm like, no, like I like to describe it as a tool that eliminates the things that prevent me from being a human to allow me more time to be a human at a bigger scale.
that's right. Yeah, you lean into it, it becomes um, one of your biggest assets. I
Hmm.
My organization is just over 120 employees, and
Wow.
we have protocols that every department uses AI every single day. And if you look at how fast we've developed and what we've done, for example, we did our first year with Sales AI, full year was last year, we did over 40 million in revenue. And it was because we're able to move so fast because we're using tools and processes that gives us such fast feedback loops. We're making faster decisions behind every department of the business.
Yeah, dude, that's incredible. Holy moly. Yeah, I actually was going to ask you about that because I was going to ask about your team, but I'm glad you said that. I love the standard and the outcome of like having protocols for productivity of like training the team and getting them to use
We
it.
we have a role in our HR department that's all she does. She trains new processes. Not everything is AI, but
Yeah,
like just trains on processes to be more efficient within the details of the company.
that's incredible, man. Like kudos. Like just in case anybody glanced over that. And I know there's a story behind it and how you get to the place of knowledge that you have, with the mile markers before. But first year in business, using AI, now 120 employees, over 40 million in revenue, and speed. The thing that I hear is the undertone over and over is speed, right? Like speed to
Mm-hmm.
market, speed to adjustment, speed to iteration. And AI is super powerful for helping you do that. But I think there's a deeper lesson as well for everybody listening that I had a guy on the show who his portfolio he manages of his company is like 60 billion. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, I'll tell you the secret. I fail faster and more than all of you so I can adjust quicker. And it's just
Yeah,
like, repetitive?
Um, we highlight actually failures on a weekly basis from a leadership team. So,
Mm,
and then on a quarterly basis, we highlight our top three failures. So, and then the key takeaways.
I
Like
love that.
we have a process behind documenting the failures. Um, and then just a small note. Um, Again, there's different levels to it, right? And I understand a lot of business owners that may be listening. You know, you may be a smaller team or a solopreneur, but you know, um, just focus on one problem a week, like the major problem, one a week, and you fix 52 problems a year. So you're outlasting the competition and beating the competition in your industry by
Yep.
just solving one problem a week. People, we like the shiny things. We like what makes revenue, right? And we like to talk about ourselves. But if you just stare at the problem for a week, you'll fix
Hmm.
it. You'll fix it. Put 25 hours of dedicated work into one problem. You'll make that, you'll fix that problem.
Well, and it also at a deeper level, which is something you've obviously navigated a ton, is it changes your relationship with problems because they're opportunities. They're in disguise, right? They're still going to be there. You can look away all you want, but they're still in your garden.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, so going into the next bucket is enabling things like Gemini into your email inbox, enabling Apple Intelligence on your iPhone, enabling, I call them screening solutions, right?
Mm,
That's the way I like to reference them. So that means in all of your high touch applications, you actually are AI enabled to where like my email inbox, I'll write a sentence, hit Gemini rewrite, and it'll put three sentences out there. And I sound way more educated, right? But I literally did it from my phone, and it took me 4 seconds to send a very educated email, right? So that'd be the second bucket is starting to use AI in your day-to-day applications so that it becomes a routine and you're starting to get really comfortable with it. It will unlock a lot of speed and efficiencies. You know, it used to take me 2 hours to do a presentation. I can get a really good presentation done in 10 minutes.
mm,
You know, that's just like a small example. Doing emails used to take me three times a day, you know, sitting in the inbox with an assistant. You know, I've had an assistant for years, but emails that I need to respond to, you know, there's probably 50 a day that I personally need to tend to. With AI, I could knock them out in 8 minutes,
hmm
10 minutes, because it's yes, no, write this sentence, rewrite, send, boom, 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 right? So bucket two is that day-to-day integration. There's a lot of ways to do it. I'm a Google user, but for Microsoft users, it's called Copilot. For Google, it's called Gemini. iPhone users, you guys are getting used to the now Apple Intelligence. You do have to turn that on inside of your settings. Just a little side note. And then bucket number three, that really gets into platforms like Sales AI, where you're looking at it from an end-to-end business solution. You're not looking at it from daily peer-to-peer use, but you're looking at it from an economic vehicle to slingshot the entire business forward. And so Sales AI is the leader in its space when it comes to calls, text, emails, AI agent creation. But there's really strong platforms for developing. There's really strong platforms for editing videos, right? There's a lot of other solutions that would be considered holistic solutions for departments. Um, but that bucket three is we use Sales AI to do this entire function within our business. That's kind of that next level integration.
I love that. Yeah. Can I ask on bucket two? Because I'm just innately curious and I'm sure I'm not alone. What tools do you use like for the presentations? Like what are some of your favorite tools or like things that like outside of like Gemini or AI? Because like I have some, but like what are some of your favorites for like presentations or social content or anything like that?
Yeah, so I actually use ChatGPT 4.0 for slide decks and presentations, and then they just enabled a feature called Canvas, so they can actually produce the entire slide deck. But I upload brand guidelines and branding with the prompt, and then it gets pretty close.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, what is that? It's not perfect, but that's my go-to solution when it comes to quick presentations, or quick turnarounds. Canva's starting to introduce some strong AI features. We are a Canva heavy company where the entire company's guidelines and standard documents are inside of Canva, and
Oh,
so they're starting to release some great features.
that's amazing. That's amazing. So now I feel like we have the after state, right? We have the, okay, got it. Sales AI, live in Indianapolis, absolutely crushing 120 employees, 40 million in your first year of revenue in this company, like AI protocols, like even from a leadership, like my nerdy little heart over here is I'm like, oh man, like I'm just so glad we're connected. I'm like, yes, he gets it. And empowering teams. How did we get here? Because I think you had what, like two failed tech startups before?
Many failures. Yeah, so quick little backstory. Grew up in a city just outside Indianapolis called New Palestine. Entrepreneur journey started when I was 15. I started by reselling sneakers. I was in a bit of a unique family situation where I was head of household as far as income was considered in the state's eyes, due to my sister battling cancer, my mom living in the hospital with my sister, and then my dad was out of the picture, struggling with addiction. He ended up passing away when I was 21. My sister did beat the cancer, just a glimpse into the story there. But I started by flipping sneakers all the way through high school. I flipped sneakers, odd end stuff. Got my first car. Was living on my own at 18. Mom was extremely supportive. Really held it down. Took care of my sister. And at 18, the sneaker market got a little crazy. Got real hard to get inventory, and I just knew it wasn't a forever thing. So then I just started dabbling. I mean, I had a coupon business, I had a digital coupon business, I had a digital marketing company, I had all these really shitty businesses, and they were shitty because I just did not like to show up every day. I looked at it as a money making opportunity, not a I'm inspired by this. And so,
Mhm.
big piece of advice: anyone that is running a business for the money, it will not last. I'm sure most of you have learned that lesson. You also create, when you're running a business that you're doing for money, you also create a lot of FOMO because you see other people being successful in other industries financially. So then you want to hop over to the next thing. And therefore, you could be in a business, three different businesses in the course of a single year because you're just chasing money. So it is true. Definitely start a business that you're passionate about so that then make money from it. But a lot of horror stories on those businesses. A funny one, just I think you get a kick out of. I had this coupon business that were like these really big door hangers, and I would sell business and I would deliver these door hangers within like a 2 mile radius of the business, and I would do 15,000 of these hangers for $900, and then I would sell 18 slots on it, right? Well, the first delivery of door hangers got delivered to our little office we were renting, and it was a semi that brought them. I was like, what is happening? They unloaded 6 pallets, taller than me, of these things. I didn't think through how to deliver the door hangers. So I was delivering door hangers all night, all morning, and all weekend. And I did it for weeks. I maybe delivered 3,000 door hangers. So it was an absolute miserable business. All said and done, I couldn't even afford to pay for the printing bill. So that was my first lawsuit. Was dealing with a printing bill I couldn't afford to pay. I eventually got it paid, but yeah, that was a miserable failure. So that one really sucked.
6 pallets, door to door, one by one.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough. So I would think through your economics and your delivery model in your business beforehand,
Hmm.
before you sell it. So yeah, that was an important lesson. Um, but from there, we were running the digital marketing company, and I was trying to make strong connections within the city of Indianapolis. I was using LinkedIn manually to do so. I was like, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so, long story short, came with an idea to automate it, and that company became Connected. We grew Connected very fast, very successfully. Ended up selling the business in October of 2023. We had about 200 employees when we sold. Um, it ended up being the go-to recruiting automation for corporate recruiting. It was one of the strongest platforms for that. We serviced over 40,000 businesses on it. The peak annual recurring revenue was just north of 20 million on that business. So it was a good business. It had years of profit and years of burning, but ended up being an all right business. It was high churn. It was very platform dependent, meaning
Mm.
it was built on someone else's sandbox, so it had a lot of pros and cons with it. Um, but sales AI, we learned a lot of valuable lessons: how to build a team, how to build a culture, how to market, how to expand. I mean, every key lesson that we've deployed into sales AI, which has led to our growth, um, it came from that business.
Yep.
So that business we processed just under 50 million in total revenue, all said and done. So a lot of money through our hands with that company, but ultimately paid for a lot of the lessons that has led to running sales AI.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So I love and thank you for the thing I've probably said more on this podcast in 600 episodes than anything of like, if you do this for the money, you're gonna lose. Like, it has to be
Yeah.
purpose driven and be about impact and like what you desire. What are some of your other like deeply founded like principles that you carry now that you learned through like Connected and all those things? Like what, like, how do you as like the CEO, right, of a 120 person company, like learning these lessons and integrating them? Like, what are some of the other ones that like you carry with you every day now that you're like, no matter what, this is how I see it?
Yes, I run the entire business on three frameworks. Um, if you are EOS or familiar with EOS at all, listening to the podcast, some of this may sound familiar, some of it's slightly tweaked. My first framework that I live by is hell yes, hell no. In the middle of this Venn diagram is hell. If it is sitting in hell, I pull it out. And if I can't make it a hell yes, it's a hell no, and I get rid of it.
Yep.
Right. So, you know, come to me with a problem. We draw it on the Venn diagram. If it's sitting in hell, we decide, is it a problem worth fixing to make it a hell yes? No. Okay. Then we just get rid of it. We just kill the project. We disassemble the investment structure, whatever it is, right? So hell yes, hell no is a very strong framework. Next framework is emotional or logical. Let's see, come in. We've got to figure this out. Okay, George, is this emotional or logical problem that you're bringing to the business?
Mm.
And it's a little bit of both. Okay, what's making you mad or what's making you frustrated? Okay, the emotions on the left side of the board. All right, what's the logical? Okay, all right, George, what would you do to solve this problem? Most of the time, it's okay. Well, then let's go do it. So it's more of like they're almost asking for permission and
Yep.
venting.
Yep.
So the ENL framework, and then the third and most important one, think, do, be. A lot of people live in the think state where they are not. They're using data as a point of reference to navigate. Therefore, they're living in the past. And do is they're using data to make decisions and to do and to move forward. However, they're not in their completely be state, which means they're only using data to grow and they're not using it to innovate and to actually be in their total B state, which is being inside of, there's a whole layer under what B means. But, you know, um, so those are the three frameworks that will solve almost every problem in any business.
I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly. I love the reminder of the hell yes, hell no, and in the middle is hell, that
Yeah.
purgatory phase, right? And it
Yep.
even speaks to earlier of like, in hearing your story, like and just parts and pieces, because obviously there's a ton of it in there. Just like your speed of iteration and how quickly you make decisions and execute things is really like where the lessons come from, but also where the results come from, right? Just
Mhm.
being able to not because I know I can speak for myself internally and doing this for, 20 years, like not speak for myself internally, speak for myself as an entrepreneur. Like some of the biggest mistakes I've ever made are internalizing the roadblocks or the obstacles, right? Or allowing it to get into my emotions and not separating out and ending up in this purgatory. I did a podcast earlier and I was like, I spent too much time staring at the doors that were closed behind me than walking through the ones God opened for me.
Yeah, the past should only be used as a point of reference, not a point of declaration. So
Mm-hmm.
it should only be referenced if necessary to make a decision.
I love that. That's a zinger right there. The past should be used as a point of reference, not a point of declaration.
Mhm.
And so now you guys, you have basically 100 plus employees now with Sales AI, right? And even talking through use AI in the business, you've navigated all of this. So like where does vision come into this for you? Like what's your dream? What's your goal? Like how do you navigate that as the CEO? Like especially with like how quick you've grown. Like I feel like that mile marker moves, but like how do you hold that? How do you inspire the team by that? Like how do you operate against that every day?
Yeah, you have to operate it against a couple key levers. First lever, and I put it in the bucket of empowerment. So I hire smart people and big salaries. Why would I dictate them? So I give every year, top of the year, I give 5 key pillars for the business to focus on. They establish rocks and milestones against that for the year, and then I empower them to execute against them. And as long as 95% of that's being executed on, there's no reason for me to step in. So the first lever I pull on is empowerment, post vision, right? I do a lot of the visionary work, off site, but I do bring the vision to the C-suite team and allow them to massage it and get their feedback. Like it's not just me, but
Yep.
I'll start it. Like I'll get it kickstarted. Outside of empowerment is systems and processes, right? So the next lever is if it doesn't have a system or a process, why are we doing it? And so this is out of every department, someone owns the entire systems and processes, documentation and SOP process. It's a huge investment in the business, but when you're playing big boy baseball, you got to document everything, or else you don't know how you got there. And then the third is, again, data is technically the past, but it is an important piece of reference. Every major KPI is digitally tracked within the business. And so the way I balance, what you're really asking me, how do I balance doing and being,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I use data to do, but then I live in be to cast vision to enable empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's right back to the same frameworks that we just covered.
Yeah. And I have a question that just hit my intuition, like thinking about like where you are as a company now, right? Like the size of the company, the team of the company, but knowing also there's people that are listening that are solopreneurs or have teams of like 4 or 5, like, and even what you shared, would you feel like it's fair that all of these are important to do just as early on as they are when you get to the level that you're at?
There's levels to it. 600K to a million revenue, you're kind of doing everything. But if you're a business listening to this and you're a solopreneur, or you have one person working for you and you're in that 600K to a million range, if you're not wanting to live a lifestyle business, this is important. If you're not wanting to live a lifestyle business, then you need to take what I'm about to say very serious. You need to wake up, create a bigger vision, and you need to start hiring your weaknesses. Because past a million, maybe 1.5 million, depending on what you do, it's really hard to not have a team around you to pick up the broken pieces that you suck at. So you have to start making strategic hires. For most visionaries, your first couple strategic hires include an assistant and an operations piece, because you're not detail oriented and you don't write things down very well. So
I feel
when
I
when
feel
you
called out as a visionary, but yeah, lessons learned in first 2 hires that I ever had, and I was like, oh, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like.
yeah,
So
so
good.
you have to de-risk your vision by investing in people you believe in.
Mm-hmm. And by
So
lifestyle company, do you mean one that's like just to support a lifestyle? I'm okay if it goes, like I'm kind of the face of it, but like I want to build something of legacy that sticks around that isn't codependent on me all the time that
yeah,
I
I
can
mean,
take.
you're a little digital course creator making a couple hundred grand a year, and it just pays for lifestyle, or you're just an influencer, it gets paid to make a post every once in a while. Like, is what it is, right?
Yeah.
That those are lifestyle businesses. But if you're going to go build anything of significance, you have to hire your weaknesses.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. Now, this might be a little non sequitur, but I'm innately curious because like you're beyond well spoken. You have experience under your belt, right? Like you have, from what I can see results wise, like big aspirations, big goals. And from what I also, take away is that like, harmony between business and life. But like, what do you do for yourself? Like as a CEO, like where do you invest in yourself? Like where do you learn? Do you read books? Do you hire coaches? Like what does that like part of your growth look like?
The growth plan for me starts with my faith. Last year was a big year for me. Invested within my church and community and everything to do with the kingdom building.
Hmm.
I donated over $300,000 personally, and donated every weekend, and did every community event that I could attend to one, keep me grounded. For my age, I've had very significant financial success, and I have every materialistic object you could think of, and it's not about that, right? It's about a bigger calling, and that is what motivated me in the beginning. I will be transparent on this podcast. The cars, the watches, the house, that motivated me in the beginning. And that's okay. I'll be the first to tell anyone, if a freaking Lamborghini gets your ass out of bed to go crush your goals, get up, go chase it, right? But your perspective starts to shift when you realize, you don't need a 10th car. You'd rather see, you know, 200 kids get new school shoes, right? And so I started making heavy investments in my faith community and being involved with seeing things way beyond me become better. And so that's a big one. Also, just getting my knowledge of what that faith walk really means. And for listeners, I'm Christian.
Yep.
Just for if it's anyone's curious. So um, and just being close with my, Bible study group, and that helps a lot. Just stay grounded and live holistic. Number two, I constantly improve on trying to be a better husband and father. I do have two kids. I am married. I've been married for 5 years. And so that is my biggest weakness. I was a really shitty father early on. I was arguably a shitty husband early on because I was very selfish, and I am still very selfish in a lot of ways. So I have to make a lot of investments, and I've started making financial investments in coaches that teach holistic living. I don't believe in balance. I believe in holistic living. So I'm on a program this year on holistic. So to answer your question directly, I read the start with the Bible, but I also read a lot of business books. I If I don't like it, I'll just stop reading it. I'll be
I do the
honest. Like
same
if I
thing.
can't
Yep.
get with it, like
Yep.
it's just in the trash,
Yep.
or it becomes a decoration. But um, and then I've invested heavily into masterminds. I've invested heavily into mentorship. I've went through all the levels of it. Um, I've paid as much as a few $100,000 a year for mentorship, but there is a level of you, you understand how to run a business, right? And so it becomes extremely repetitive in what you can buy for knowledge when it comes to just business. So then you start to invest in things like holistic living and your health. And, I lost 100 pounds over the last year and a half. I got super fat. It was disgusting. But, so like you start to invest in like other things because you start to get, there's only so much business knowledge as far as like the fundamentals,
Hmm.
but and then you really, but let's take it back down to when I remember myself sitting at my kitchen table, like, how the hell am I going to do this? Right. Because a lot of people listening probably have some sort of questions around that. I'm talking about things that are a little beyond just where a lot of people actually are in their business. Invest into local networking groups and mentorship at a bare minimum. Every city, even in Montana, I guarantee you, there is something called BNI, Gold Star, or YPO, right? Those are all local networking business groups that you can start to surround yourself. There's a big saying that everyone said or everyone's familiar with. You are who you spend the most time with, the five most people or the five people you spend the most time with. That is not true. It is the five people you admire to be like.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it, right? You admire to be like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, God himself. Like you will start to find yourself, where do these people spend time? How do I get myself into those rooms, right? It starts with something like BNI, it's $250 a year. But then it grows into getting into the yacht club. It grows into buying the private jet. It grows into those things so that you are in those rooms with those types of people, right? But start small and the locals so you can, one, have a sounding board. Two, talk to other people that have the same struggles as you. Three, can sell each other's services, right? I went to BNI Gold Star. I was the youngest member of BNI at 18 years old in the region. And I went to every group, every meeting. I hustled my ass off, right? I found an old box of business cards when I used to go to those events. And it was a big box of all these business cards of all the people that I would network with. And I would shoot my shot, dude. I would go right. I mean, I would go right for your throat on, hey, do you think you could help me, meet so and so? Some people told me to fuck off, and other people are like, yeah, here you go, group text, done,
Yep.
And people just have this huge fear of, I'm not good enough, I'm not far enough along, and that's a self label, right? And if you have a self label, what you're actually doing is creating distance between where you want to go, by simply creating a misconception that you are something because you think or feel that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
God, I love that. Yeah, it resonates so deeply. And by the way, I re-lost 100 pounds again last year as well. So we share that in
nice.
common because I
That's
went
awesome.
from active duty Marine to competitive athlete to like out of alignment because I chased money, to then God being like, oh, you wanted all these things? Well, COVID, poof. And then I ate my feelings. And then finally I was like, oh, 40. No, this is it. Six pack of 40. Here we go. But it was easy because it was based on
Yeah.
faith and purpose and like all of that stuff. And even you and I are so similar, like even on the book thing. One day I'll have a house of all these books I never read because they were pretty and I couldn't get into them. And
Yeah.
now I swear, like I spend probably an hour a day in the morning in the Bible. Like, and
Mhm.
it's like every business book, every personal development book, every book that I've ever read on like mindset, perspective, habits, behaviors I found in my Bible. And even this
Yeah.
morning, I was like,
It's the best business book on the planet.
hands down, hands down. Like I was rereading Job this morning and I was like, oh, yeah, there we go. Like you can have the entire kingdom, but in a moment's notice, it's gone. And so, like, I love that, man. And also, like, I just want to acknowledge like your self awareness. One of my favorite Bibles, I have the John Waxwell Leadership Bible,
Mhm.
and they do call outs on like every book, every verse, everything from the lens of like leadership. And, so many things resonate in like what I coach and how I help people with that. Like you just embody like your humility, your self awareness, like not from a place of self deprecation, but from a place of like, okay, I can adjust this, I can tweak this. And then you take action to go do it. And I love the holistic. I say balance is BS, harmony is what you're after.
Mhm.
Um, and I love that perspective. Like there's so much meat and depth and even for everybody listening, because like we're gonna land the plane in a minute, but I would go back and re-listen because this is one of those things like as articulate as Devin is and how off the top he is and like boom, 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 the depth underneath what you just shared multiple
Mhm.
times, like AI stuff, but even the buckets of business, the way that you execute vision, the way that you look at yourself, how to invest into where you want to go, the power of networking, and like where, the hardest place to be is hiding behind your computer, because business happens out into the world and it requires relationships and people. And you heard it from the guy himself, was an AI company, that people are still the biggest secret, because you can't hide from
Mhm.
it. Like, just give this like another listen, because like I'm just incredibly like grounded and grateful that even I got to record this show with you and hear all of this, and just tickled in so many ways, as like faith is super important to me. And
Mhm.
I'm working every day to expand God's kingdom, and it's come with many things and answered prayers, except they didn't look like I thought they would look. And I'm like, okay, got it, but it's in front of me right now. And so like,
My my favorite saying, I'll leave you with this, is it may not happen when you want it to happen. It's not going to look how you think it's going to look, but he'll take you further than you could ever imagine going.
yep, yeah, oh God. And it's so resonant. I watched, one of my pastors I watched besides my local church, and he had this small clip go up yesterday, and he's like, you got to remember where the Bible comes in and where the word of God comes in. He's like, because you ask for a prayer, but then the battle begins, and the words of God is what armor you for that battle to live in the glory of like what's delivered. And I'm like, yep, got it. Like, let's go put on my Ephesians and let's hit the ground running.
Hmm.
And so I love that, man. So for everybody listening, the best place I would recommend, I follow him on Instagram because I was stalking him all morning, but is Devin's Instagram. Devin, can you give everybody your Instagram so they can follow you, shoot you DM?
Yep. Devin Allen Johnson, DevinAllenJohnson, all
Awesome.
one word. And you'll see, get it, sales AI, my bio, so on and so forth, Kingdom Builder. So there's some fakey profiles floating around.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we link it in the show notes. We'll have Devin Allen Johnson, as he spelled it out, linked in the show notes. And me selfishly, for anybody listening, I always ask this, but if anything resonated with you, if anything tickled you, like if anything inspired you, like shoot him a DM, like let him know, send gratitude, say thanks. Like I'm just grateful that you took, an hour out of your day to share your wisdom and to share your insights and to share your knowledge with everybody. And I'm going to ask you a question that I ask sometimes, depending on if I'm called, but I love your perspective. Like I'm humbled by it. Like it feels inspiring to me. And like, just what you're doing is so powerful. And I ask everybody, you remember that movie Men in Black,
Hmm.
where
Yeah.
they flash your eyes and everybody gets erased? I'm like, I just imagine everybody listening to this forgot the entire conversation, but in this moment you have the ability to tattoo some wisdom or words on their soul. Like, what would your
Hmm.
tattoo wisdom be?
My go-to saying is what I mentioned earlier. And, just remember, as long as you're consistent, it's not going to look how you think it was going to look. It's not going to happen when you think it's going to happen. As long as you believe and you work towards it, you'll go further than you could ever imagine.
Mm, I love that, man. I love that. And for everybody listening, like, please, from my heart, like, give gratitude, because this show is loaded with nuggets and takeaways and depth and clarity and peace in so many buckets and levels. And connect with Devin and help him spread the message, because men like this, and I'm speaking to you, but for people listening, are the ones we want to get behind and support, because the impact is there. It takes care of his employees, family man, like spreading the word. Like, it's just so powerful and so amazing. And so just don't let this become shelf help, right? Take one
Mm-hmm.
thing. And to Devin's point earlier, if you listen to this show and you took notes, like, there's these 33 things that all came up for me. Take his point, pick one a week, sit with it, go solve it, put it into practice, and earn the right to unlock the next one. And so, my brother, I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show.
No problem. Thanks for hosting me. And I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course, man. So for everybody, we will either see you in the next episode or you'll hear me in your earballs, but either way, we're out.